television, that would be greatly appreciated. It does look like they are coming back. So I'm going to go ahead and assume, okay, good. We're still good. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and put a track on this storm. Again, these storms are moving to the northeast at about 35 miles per hour. So I'm going to go ahead and put a track. There's a little box for you showing some cities. Frankfort by 303, Crooked Oak by 308, New Bethel by 312, Flatwoods by 315, and then getting into Littleville by 319. So again, this is a radar indicated tornado. We have nothing confirmed on the ground. This is radar indicated, but you do see an area of increased velocity right there on the border of Colbert and Franklin counties. This actually does look like it would be just barely to the northeast of Frankfort, right to the south of Rock Creek. Radar indicated, nothing confirmed on the ground. So I want to kind of switch this up. I want to show you our shear rate. As everybody knows, I really love our shear rate products, and there's not a whole lot of impressive shear here just to the south of Rock Creek, right around Frankfort, where I noticed that area of increased rotation. But as we head up just a little further to the north, up into Newsom Springs, maybe an area of increased shear. And you also notice our lightning counter has kind of increased recently as well. So that's something we're going to pay attention to, as it does look like this storm is kind of beginning to strengthen just a little bit. And this is just the beginning of an area of showers and thunderstorms hanging out back across northeast Mississippi. Some of this activity is really picking up as far as strength is concerned. Again, a lot of these storms are beginning to move to the northeast into northwest Alabama. Folks in Lauderdale, Colbert, and Franklin counties are sitting under an environment that is much more favorable for the development of severe weather. So that's something we're going to continue to watch as we go through the next several minutes. But they're not the only ones talking about rain. As a matter of fact, some of us, and this probably isn't actually this widespread, if we go ahead and switch this to the Huntsville radar, you can really get a full view of how much rain we're talking about back across the I-65 corridor. But we're going to go back to our Columbus radar, and we're going to continue to talk about the tornado warning that is currently in effect for Lauderdale, Colbert, and Franklin counties. This is radar indicated. We have nothing confirmed on the ground as of this moment. So I want to go ahead and try and zoom in on this tornado warning for you. And you can kind of see our area of increased interest. That's too far. Let's zoom that back out, and let's zoom that back in again. And again, you can kind of see our area. It looks like it's just to the south of Rock Creek. Some pretty intense rotation. You can see those darker greens, or those brighter greens, and those darker reds kind of beginning to converge together. That's right around the Rock Creek area, just to the north of Frankfort. So at this point, our area of greatest concern is going to be more into Colbert County as opposed to Franklin County. At this point, if you are in Franklin County, you are on the back edge. If you're in Pleasant Site for the time being, I'm pretty confident that you are in the clear. So certainly some good news there. But if you're in the Rock Creek area, if you're in Underwood Heights, if you're in Bear Creek, you really need to be getting into your tornado safe place. If you're in Cedar Hill Estates, you really need to be getting into your tornado safe place. Highway 72, portions of 72 are under the gun. Not talking about anything warned just yet, but something that we're going to be mindful of. For the time being, our area of concern is going to be just north of Frankfort, right around Rock Creek, where we do see that increase in lightning, and we do see some pretty impressive rotation there right around the Rock Creek area. So if you don't mind, Emily, switching it over to our shear rate, I want to see what we're talking about as far as shear is concerned. Shear is one of our most fantastic tools, and honestly, it doesn't really look that impressive as far as the Rock Creek area is concerned. Emily's kind of circling an area of increased interest where you can see where maybe we're talking about a little bit of elevated shear. So if you are in the Rock Creek community, you really need to be in your tornado safe place, because it looks like this storm is right over your community. Again, Emily has gone ahead and circled this particular area.
Hey, Jordan.
Yes, ma'am.
First, can we get my mic popped up?
Can we turn Emily's mic on? She's on mic 4.
4. Testing. I don't think I'm up yet. Okay, maybe I'm up now. I just want to go ahead and let you know, you had mentioned that this thing was kind of on the line of Franklin and Colbert County. Franklin has been allowed to be expired from this tornado warning, so right now we're just looking at Colbert and Lauderdale counties.
Okay, so Emily just provided us with an update there. Franklin County has been allowed to be dropped from the tornado warning, so Lauderdale and Colbert counties are going to remain under that tornado warning at least for the time being. Franklin County is no longer under the tornado warning. So for the time being, we're going to be talking about Lauderdale and Colbert counties. A pretty decent area of rotation. At this point, it is moving just to the east of Rock Creek. We can really see those reds and those greens really beginning to converge together. This would be just to the west of Crooked Oak, right around Jones Road, right around Green Hill Road, dropping down towards Jones Road again. So really right along Jones Road, just to the east of Green Hill Road is where we're talking about this area of increased rotation. And that's something we're going to pay attention to over the next couple of minutes. Emily, go ahead and put a track on this if you don't mind. This storm's moving to the northeast at about 35 miles per hour. And again, like I said at the very beginning of this tornado warning, these storms are entering an area in northwest Alabama that's much more favorable for the development of severe weather. So Emily's gone ahead and put a track on this. If this storm continues to hold together, that would be New Bethel by about 311, Tuscumbia by about 324, Spring Valley by 327, up into the Shoals by 328, Sheffield by 328, and then Valley Grove by 330. Now, this tornado warning is expected to expire at around 3:30, but again, it's entering an area that is much more favorable for the development of severe weather. So that's something we're going to continue to watch as we go through about the next 27 to 30 minutes. I've got 3:03 right now. Again, this is radar indicated. We have nothing confirmed, and it still looks like our greatest area of rotation is going to be just above the banner, right around the Rock Creek area, where we are actually talking about a pretty decent area of rotation. So if you're just joining us, if you're expecting your 3 o'clock show, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman. We're breaking into programming this afternoon because we're talking about our first tornado warning of the day for Lauderdale and Colbert counties. We're talking about an area of rotation that's kind of in between Rock Creek and the Crooked Oak community, just to the north of Frankfort. Now, Frankfort is down into Franklin County, but the tornado warning is not in effect for Franklin County, just Lauderdale and Colbert. And the area of interest that we're watching is a pretty significant area of rotation, actually.
We've actually got some history of some hail reported with this.
Oh, there. Emily's gone ahead and switched over. Is this current hail or is this a hail swath, Emily?
It's a hail swath, but we just got a notification from the Huntsville chat that they are seeing some large hail around 1 inch possible.
So something worth noting as well, like Emily just said, this storm does have a history of producing a little bit of hail, especially in the Rock Creek community. They're kind of dead centered with this area of hail. So that's also something we're going to want to be mindful of. Potential tornado, a lot of very heavy rain, a lot of lightning. Heavy rain has been a problem really all day. Many locations across the Tennessee Valley, not just in northwest Alabama. They've been talking about some pretty significant rain. Some locations have seen 3 or 4 inches, which means flooding is going to continue to be a concern through the duration of the afternoon and as we head into the evening, as these storms continue to move through the Tennessee Valley. So I want to reset just real quick, kind of break down what we're talking about. We're talking about a radar indicated tornado. A tornado warning is in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert counties until 3:30. Emily's gone ahead and switched on our general reflectivity. And you can see we're talking about some pockets of very, very heavy rain indicated by those darker reds getting into those brighter pinks. This entire storm is moving to the northeast at about 35 miles per hour. I imagine it would be heading for Cedar Hill Estates right around Highway 72, probably within the next 5 or 10 minutes. If this entire storm holds together, it would head up towards Muscle Shoals and potentially up into Florence. That would then allow it to cross Highway 43. Now, once we get to Muscle Shoals and Florence, you are literally right on the edge of this tornado warning. So that's something that we want to continue to watch. If you're in Bear Creek, you are included in the tornado warning. You probably need to be getting into your tornado safe place if you are not there already. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to pick our velocity image. I want to see what we're looking at. And this entire area kind of looks like it's moving to the northeast of Rock Creek at this point. Thank you, Emily. So if you are in the Rock Creek community, I would say you are probably in the clear. Move that down so that it is above the banner there. Emily's gone ahead and highlighted this area of rotation that we're continuing to watch. Again, this is a radar indicated tornado. We have nothing confirmed on the ground. Emily, if you don't mind switching it over to our correlation coefficient, I would be kind of curious to see if we're talking about anything as far as a correlation coefficient is concerned. I wouldn't really bet on it, though. The rotation, no, I'm not really seeing anything of particular interest. If we were talking about any sort of flying debris maybe within this area, I would expect maybe to see some different colors, such as some blues or some brighter yellows as opposed to the pinks and the oranges. But still, we are continuing to talk about a radar-indicated tornado, so we do have the tornado warning that is in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert counties, and that tornado warning is going to run until about 3:30 this afternoon. Again, these storms, as they move from northeast Mississippi into northwest Alabama, they're going to enter an environment that is particularly favorable for severe weather because the folks in northwest Alabama, they really haven't seen much in the way of any widespread rain for a couple of hours now. A lot of that rain really came to an end. About 11 or 11:30 this morning, they've been able to see a little bit of sunshine through the later part of the morning, early into the afternoon, and that's allowed their environment to destabilize quite significantly to where temperatures across northwest Alabama are sitting in the upper 60s and lower 70s, while dew points are sitting in the low and mid 60s. So certainly some impressive numbers that are conducive for the development of severe weather. Emily's gone ahead and thrown on a track. New Bethel by 311, Tuscumbia by 324, Muscle Shoals by 328, Sheffield also by 328, Valley Grove by 330, Florence by 332. Now, everything after Valley Grove, this tornado warning is scheduled to expire at 3:30. So everything after Valley Grove, including Valley Grove, of course, Florence and Cave Spring, would be pending this storm holds itself together enough that the National Weather Service here in Huntsville would actually continue this warning. Now, the shear isn't the most impressive thing in the world, but you can kind of see we're highlighted by this brighter green color, indicating maybe we are talking about a little bit of wind shear. This would just be to the southwest of New Bethel. So if you are in New Bethel, you really need to be getting into your tornado safe place because it looks like the area of concern is going to be moving into your neck of the woods within the next couple of minutes. Again, we've got the track there on your screen. This area would enter New Bethel at about 3:11, so about another 2 minutes for this storm to enter your neck of the woods. If you are in New Bethel, you need to be in your tornado safe place. That is the lowest, most interior room of your home. Make sure you pick a room with no windows. Be sure you turn up your TV so you can still hear the sound of my voice and get into your tornado safe place. Emily's gone ahead and switched on our velocity image. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of rotation at this point. It does look like this rotation is kind of broadened up just a little bit. So I'm kind of curious to see what this storm is going to continue to do as we go through the next few minutes and it continues to move to the northeast. But for the time being, we do have a tornado warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert counties until 3:30 this afternoon. And this is all associated with some discrete supercells that are moving from northeast Mississippi into northwest Alabama. And like I said a couple of minutes ago, as these storms move into northwest Alabama, they are entering an environment that is considerably more favorable for the development of severe weather. You can see as we go back into Mississippi, as a matter of fact, Emily, let's go back into Mississippi just a little further. You can kind of see we're talking about a couple of different areas of interest that we're going to continue to watch. As a matter of fact, zoom in on that Fulton storm, if you don't mind. The Fulton storm kind of looks a little interesting. Of course, now at this point, we're getting back into Mississippi. This is Fairview over in northeast Mississippi, Fulton in northeast Mississippi, and then Clay over in northeast Mississippi. So, of course, we are watching some very interesting storms. You can zoom back out if you don't mind. Thank you. We're going to continue to watch these storms as they move to the northeast into northwest Alabama. So with this current tornado warning that we're watching across the Tennessee Valley, Lauderdale and Colbert counties, it looks like at this point the rotation has become very broad. I want to flip over to our base velocity, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of rotation there. I'm not seeing a whole lot of very strong rotation on our storm relative velocity, and I'm still noticing a little bit of shear just to the south of Newsom Springs. but it's nothing that's terribly impressive as this storm continues to move to the northeast. I don't see anything that's necessarily sparking my interest. We can look at a sheer swath and kind of see that this storm does have a history of some significant wind shear, but to be quite honest, I'm not really seeing it right now. But nonetheless, we are still talking about a tornado warning for Lauderdale and Colbert counties. Tornado warning not set to expire until 3:30 this afternoon. So again, tornado warning in effect for Lauderdale and Colbert counties until 3:30 this afternoon. This is a radar indicated tornado. And at this point, the rotation, if there's any left, it looks very broad. So I'm not necessarily very confident. And as a matter of fact, as this storm moves over into Cedar Hill Estates, it kind of looks like, based on its reflectivity, that it also may have weakened just a little bit. We're still talking about some pockets of very heavy rain and some very gusty winds, but I kind of have a difficult time believing that this storm is holding itself together. And like Emily mentioned earlier, this storm does have a history of producing some pretty significant hail. So that's also going to be worth a mention as this storm continues to move to the northeast over the next few minutes. Emily, if you don't mind switching it over to my show, I want to talk about the tornado watch that is in effect for different portions, well, actually the entire Tennessee Valley. We are talking about a tornado watch that is in effect for all of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. That tornado watch is going to run until 8 o'clock this evening. Not just any tornado watch, it comes with a particular tag, a PDS tornado watch. What does that mean? Well, it stands for particularly dangerous situation. That means the environment across the Tennessee Valley is a little more favorable to support the development of some violent or even long track tornadoes. The entire Tennessee Valley is sitting under a high risk for severe weather, and this is going to stick with us through the duration of the afternoon into the evening. All modes of severe weather are going to be possible, including some very heavy rains, some very gusty winds, damaging straight line winds potentially in excess of 60 or 70 miles per hour. We have seen a little more activity this afternoon down to the south, right around the Birmingham area, back down into the Birmingham metro, and we're also watching some activity down into central Mississippi.
Hey, Jordan, new information. They just went ahead and canceled the tornado warning for Colbert and Lauderdale. So as of this moment, we have no active tornado warnings within the Tennessee Valley.
So certainly some good news there. I'll just kind of repeat what Emily said. They have allowed the tornado warning in Colbert and Franklin counties to expire. So certainly some good news there, but I want to stick with you for at least a few more minutes so we can continue to talk about what we're going to see through the duration of the afternoon. We're watching an area of low pressure. It has an associated cold front with it. This cold front is going to eventually move through the Tennessee Valley, but this entire system is moving to the northeast, and I want you to pay particular attention to these storms around Tupelo, these more discrete standalone storms. They're going to continue to move to the northeast up into the Tennessee Valley, and as they move to the northeast up into the Tennessee Valley, they're going to enter an environment that is a little more favorable for the development of severe weather. As a matter of fact, a particularly heavy storm beginning to move into the Red Bay community. So if you are in Red Bay, just be mindful that the rain, if it hasn't already picked up, is going to pick up over the next couple of minutes there. In Franklin County. Russellville probably talking about a little bit of light rain for the time being. Up into Littleville, maybe talking about a little bit of light rain, not a whole lot of activity for now. But if we zoom out and look at the Tennessee Valley as a whole, you can see they're not the only ones talking about rain. We've also got some rain. Switch that back over to the Huntsville radar if you don't mind. We're talking about plenty of rain across the Tennessee Valley. Some of this rain has become a little more widespread over the last few minutes, a fair amount of rain across northeast Alabama. Now, this does have the potential to stabilize our environment a little bit, but we're still sitting under an area of relatively unstable air. Go back over to my show. I want to show our current temperatures and our current dew points across the Tennessee Valley, because our dew points are going to be really important especially this afternoon. Temperatures right now are sitting in the mid and upper 60s, lower 60s across northeast Alabama. But notice Arab and Albertville have climbed to 68 degrees. Coleman's sitting at 66, Russellville and Moulton sitting at 64. But look at Florence. They're actually sitting at 70 degrees. And then 66s for Athens, Decatur, and Huntsville. Dew points are a bit of a different story. Dew points are also sitting in the mid and upper 60s. Now, dew points in the mid and upper 60s are a little more important because when we're talking about dew points in the mid and upper 60s, we're talking about an environment that is incredibly moist. Dew points, again, 66, 64, Athens and Decatur, a dew point of 65 right now in Florence, 63 in Russellville. That's actually a pretty impressive dew point. And that means we're sitting under an environment that continues to be conducive for the development of severe weather. Look at our Moulton tower cam right now. Again, this is over in Moulton. A few breaks in the clouds, maybe a little bit of rain there on the camera lens, but it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of activity. Back over in Decatur, it actually does look like they're talking about a fair amount of rain, though it does look like traffic is moving smoothly in and out of Decatur, but it's really hard to see the tree line there off in the distance. Looks like a fair amount of heavy rain is falling over in Decatur. This is going to be something that we continue to watch over the next several minutes, over the next couple of hours, as we get into the later part of the afternoon, early into the evening. We're still talking about that opportunity for rain. I think that's a new tornado warning, Emily. I think we're going to stick with you. I'm kind of curious to see what the National Weather Service ends up doing. This looks like a storm that has kind of evolved here recently. Looks like they've issued a brand new tornado warning, so we're going to stick with you. If they continue this tornado warning, it looks like it would end up moving into Franklin County, involving Red Bay, and then up into burnout. So we're going to continue to watch this. Emily's gone ahead and circled our area of interest. Now, this is still back into northeast Mississippi. So right now, nobody in Alabama is under the gun. But if you're in Vina, I might suggest getting into your tornado safe place in the rather immediate future, because this is a very interesting area of rotation that we're actually watching. Again, this is just to the southeast of Fairview, but nonetheless, it looks very interesting. So I'm curious to see if this storm is going to hold itself together and eventually move into Alabama. Right now, it does look like a tornado warning is in effect for northeast Mississippi, and it does kind of border northwest Alabama, but it doesn't include northwest Alabama. I want to click. There's some very impressive shear with that thunderstorm. We're talking about a high rate of shear, actually. Look at that, just to the southeast of Fairview. Again, this is back into Mississippi, so it's okay if you don't recognize these little town names over in northeast Mississippi. But we are actually talking about an impressive amount of shear with this storm. This actually looks pretty good on radar. I can see why they issued a tornado warning. So I think this is something we're going to stick with over the next few minutes. I'm kind of curious to see what they're going to do as this storm continues to move to the north. Yes.
While you kind of analyze things, I do want to just mention a couple things that I've been noticing in the Huntsville chat just recently. I just want to give a few storm reports out. We've gotten no damage so far, but we do have reports of hail in Limestone County near the Pleasant Grove community. We also have reports of high winds and heavy rainfall along with a small hail. That's just reported at the Pleasant Grove Volunteer Fire Department on Upper Snake Road. And from the National Weather Service in Huntsville, they went ahead and did upgrade the flash flood warning to a considerable warning along I-65 that extends from Coleman into Morgan counties, and this will actually include portions of southwest Marshall County. Their wording says expect serious flash flooding to occur over the next few hours. So not only are we dealing with a damaging wind threat and a tornado threat today, but we are also dealing with a flooding threat as well.
Emily, over in my show, while we're waiting to see what the National Weather Service is going to do with this tornado warning, I actually do have 12-hour precip accumulations. So if you don't mind going over to that as well. And look at this. Look at these impressive rainfall totals. Again, this is just over the last 12 hours. So I've got about 321 here on the clock in the building. So this is rain that's fallen since about 3 o'clock this morning. Look at this. These are just radar indicated estimates. But look at that. Arab, 3.9 inches of rain. Coleman, 4.9 inches. Where'd it go?
I was trying to see if I could get that flood. I don't think you have it in your show.
No, I don't have that one in my show. But we can go back to the, thank you. 4.9 inches of rain in Coleman, and look how this does right along I-65. So it correlates very closely with what Emily was just saying, this particular area of interest across I-65. 2.5 inches in the last 12 hours in Decatur. Now, some of these rainfall totals could be higher because these are just radar estimates. These aren't confirmed on the ground truth. Now, if you do live anywhere in the Tennessee Valley and you have some sort of rain gauge in your yard, please text us. The number's 256-382-2692. Text us your rain reports. Tell us what's been in your gauge, and that'll give us a much more accurate description of what's actually going on the ground. Scottsboro has recorded 2.6 inches of rain in the last 12 hours. The Huntsville International Airport has recorded right around, I think it was just over 2 inches. We're going to go back to Pinpoint Viper. We're continuing to watch this area in northeast Mississippi, continuing to wait and kind of see.
There's no talk of it yet. We're just waiting to see if we're going to transition this over to a tornado warning into Franklin, or if they are just going to extend with a severe thunderstorm warning. So we're kind of waiting on that.
If you kind of look, the rotation, while it is there, and we actually just got a new little arrow put up, it was looking particularly broad. I'm going to go ahead and I want to take the arrow off for just a second, because maybe with that latest radar scan, it does look like that rotation has tightened up just a little bit. Just to the north of Bounds Crossroads, it does look like that rotation may be trying to get its act together a little bit. So we'll continue to watch that over the next few minutes. Again, it's going to be very interesting to see what the National Weather Service decides to do. There is still a fair amount of shear associated with this storm just to the east of Fairview, just to the north of Bounds Crossroads. And when we get that impressive amount of shear, that means we're talking about a pretty good change in wind speed and wind direction with height. And when we get that over a little depth of altitude, that's a pretty good indication that we're talking about a fair amount of rotation. So at this point, it's just a matter of seeing what the National Weather Service is going to do. But we do have a tornado warning that runs until 4 o'clock. That is in effect for portions of northeast Mississippi. This activity would move into northwest Alabama. If you're in Red Bay at this point, you're probably talking about some very heavy, maybe at this point, you're even talking about some torrential rain. So if you are in Red Bay, let me know. This storm also does have a history of producing a little bit of hail as it's continued its journey through northeast Mississippi. So again, a decent storm. It's tornado warned. We are not entirely sure what we're going to do with it just yet, as this storm does eventually move into northwest Alabama. But if you're in Red Bay, you should probably be, have your ears open. If you're in Seven Pines, you should also probably be alert. Because nonetheless, this is going to be a very large storm, whether the National Weather Service here in Huntsville chooses to extend the tornado warning, or whether they decide to go with just a severe thunderstorm warning. And if they place that severe thunderstorm warning, it would probably for sure almost involve Franklin County. So this is something we're going to continue to watch over the next several minutes. We're going to continue to wait and see what they end up doing with this storm. But in the meantime, it does look like they have a tornado warning in effect for different portions of northeast Mississippi until 4:15. That must be new. I think that's a new tornado warning. Kind of looks like they've downsized their box just a little bit. But notice it does go all the way up to the border of Colbert and Franklin counties, and then all the way down through Red Bay. So we have nothing in northwest Alabama just yet. But we are talking about a couple of different tornado warnings back across northeast Mississippi. Maybe an uptick in lightning. There might be something worth watching. Emily, if you don't mind taking our radar, let's go back to reflectivity. Let's zoom out and look at the entire Tennessee Valley as a whole so we can continue to talk. And I will go ahead and switch that over to the Huntsville radar. So I can show you that we are still talking about a fair amount of rain across different portions of the Tennessee Valley, especially if you are I-65 and then locations to the east, some widespread rain at this point across the Tennessee Valley. Now, what this could end up doing with this rain across I-65 and points east is that it could end up stabilizing us a little bit to where the threat could be a little more reduced as far as locations in northeast Alabama, Jackson, DeKalb, and Marshall counties, and maybe even some folks in Madison County and down towards Morgan County are concerned. It does look like our big area of interest through the duration of the afternoon and even as we head into the evening is and always has been, remember, we've been talking about this for a couple of days now, our big area of interest is going to be across northwest Alabama, Lauderdale, Colbert, Franklin counties, and then getting into Florence County. That's where we've actually been able to dry out this afternoon. They were able to destabilize a little more. And some of the folks in northwest Alabama have been able to warm into the upper 60s and lower 70s this afternoon. So that's really important to note. And we're going to continue to watch this line of showers and thunderstorms as it does eventually move into the Tennessee Valley. I do notice an uptick in the lightning, especially as this storm moves further into Colbert counties and just clipping the northwest corner of Franklin County up into Florence. If you're up into Florence, you're probably talking about a fair amount of heavy rain at this point. So again, this is going to be a storm that we continue to watch closely as we go throughout the next several minutes because I'm still very curious to see what the National Weather Service is going to do. Let's go back over to the tornado watch, Emily. I want to talk about the tornado watch for just a minute or two while we continue to wait and see what we're going to do. All of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee currently sits under a PDS tornado watch. What does that mean? Well, that means we're talking about a particularly dangerous situation. The Storm Prediction Center, the National Weather Service, has noticed that the North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee are sitting under an environment that is a little more favorable for the development of more of those violent or even those long track tornadoes. And I think the best chance for those violent or long track tornadoes is going to end up being across northwest Alabama, where they have seen several hours where it's actually been dry through the later part of the morning and then early into the afternoon. So that's something I think we need to be incredibly mindful of. Now, that doesn't mean everybody else is out of the woods. That doesn't mean locations across the I-65 corridor and points east are out of the woods, and it certainly doesn't mean folks up across southern Middle Tennessee are out of the woods. It just means that our greatest chances for those violent and long track tornadoes, I think, are going to be across northwest Alabama. We're getting to the point in the afternoon where you are essentially out of time to prepare, and now it's time to, have your plan in place, have your details down to the wire just in case a tornado warning is issued for your area, because we are talking about the potential for more of these discrete supercells through the duration of the afternoon into the evening. And when these discrete supercells pop up, they tend to strengthen very, very quickly. So you'll need to be able to put your plan into action very quickly. And again, I understand that we're actually talking about a fair amount of somewhat widespread rain across, northeast Alabama, back across the I-65 corridor, and then points to the east. I fully understand that we are talking about a fair amount of widespread rain, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to be out of the woods just because you're talking about widespread rain across northwest or across northeast Alabama. So if you're just joining us, we don't have any active warnings right now in the Tennessee Valley, but we're continuing to watch a tornado warning back across northeast Mississippi that is of particular interest. It actually does come with a tornado warning, and we're just kind of waiting to see if this storm is going to hold itself together as it gets ready to move into northwest Alabama. Now, if this storm holds itself together, I would bet that they'd end up issuing a tornado warning for maybe Colbert and Franklin counties. Again, the area of interest that we're watching is still back across northeast Mississippi. So we don't have any warnings currently for northwest Alabama. At this point, it's just kind of a waiting game to see what happens with this particular storm over northeast Mississippi. So again, if you're just joining us, we did have a tornado warning earlier for northwest Alabama. That was allowed to expire. At this point, we're watching a tornado warning that is back into northeast Mississippi. This storm is moving into northwest Alabama. It's just kind of a matter of whether it's going to hold itself together and what the National Weather Service ends up doing with this. Regardless of what they end up doing, whether it turns into a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning, this is going to be a rather large thunderstorm. It's going to produce or bring with it a lot of very heavy rain. It's going to bring with it some gusty winds. So if you're in Franklin County or even up into Colbert County, this is something you need to be very mindful of. We're also talking about a fair amount of lightning, some very, very heavy rain extending all the way up into Florence, back across different portions of northwest Alabama. So this is a system we continue to watch very closely. Still no word yet if the National Weather Service is going to go ahead and issue a tornado warning. I don't see anything just yet, but we're still watching this storm as it continues to move to the northeast. Again, we're watching an area in northeast Mississippi as it begins to move into northwest Alabama. Emily, if you don't mind, let's zoom in on that area. I want to check its velocity. I kind of want to see how well it's holding itself together as it really pummels Red Bay at this point. It doesn't look like we're talking about the greatest rotation, still talking about a little bit of broad rotation over Red Bay, so that's something we're going to continue to be focused on for at least the next few minutes as the storm continues to move to the northeast. Again, nothing is warned in northwest Alabama, but we are watching some tornado warnings in northeast Alabama. Pretty impressive storm. So that's something that I want to continue to watch. Throw on our shear rate, if you don't mind. I kind of want to see what this storm's doing as far as any sort of shear. And it kind of looks like this storm has actually fallen apart. Move it up just a little bit so it's above the banner, please. It kind of looks like this storm, as it has moved west, or moved to the east, excuse me, into northwest Alabama, it does maybe look like it's fallen apart just a little bit. So that is certainly some good news there. But nonetheless, northwest Alabama is still talking about an air mass that is a little more conducive for the development of severe weather. Folks in northwest Alabama are talking about temperatures that are in the upper 60s and lower 70s. Dew points across northwest Alabama are sitting in the low and mid 60s. It appears I just got kicked out of the National Weather Service chat, and it looks like Emily also just got kicked out of the National Weather Service chat. So we're going to see if I can't get back in and kind of hope for the best, because it looks like both of us were just kicked out of the National Weather Service chat, and I'm not having any luck immediately getting back in. So in the meantime, we're going to continue to watch that storm as it moves into northwest Alabama. We have apparently lost our communication with the National Weather Service, which is not necessarily the greatest news in the world. But still, like I said, we have no tornado warnings in effect right now for northwest Alabama, but we are continuing to watch a thunderstorm that is currently hanging out in northeast Mississippi. Kind of looks like it's weakened a little bit over the last couple of radar scans. So that would certainly be some good news. Again, we have nothing in effect for northwest Alabama, but we do have a tornado warning that is currently in effect for northeast Mississippi. Some considerable rainfall, some very heavy rain, as a matter of fact, moving through northwest Alabama. A lot of thunder, a lot of lightning, some very gusty winds. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, if they're actually talking about a little bit of hail. Look, this storm is actually somewhat impressive. It does have a history of producing quite a bit of hail. So if you are in northwest Alabama, Lauderdale down into Colbert, Franklin counties, I would be very mindful of a little bit of hail. We also have a fair amount of hail that's been reported with some storms back across Limestone County. So that's something we're going to want to watch as well. A little bit of hail as we move up into southern Middle Tennessee. So again, we do have some strong, nothing warned right now in the Tennessee Valley. For the time being, we do have some very heavy rains, some gusty winds. and some decent hail. These storms do have a history of producing a little bit of hail. Our area of interest right now continues to be back across northwest Alabama, where we're watching a storm that's entering Colbert and Franklin counties. No word just yet if this tornado warning is going to be continued into northwest Alabama, but it's going to be something we watch closely over the next several minutes. In the meantime, our big focus is also going to be the fact that regardless of any sort of severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning, we are talking about the potential for some very heavy rain beginning to move into Florence, down through Colbert counties, maybe down into northwest Franklin County, maybe a little bit of light rain at this point over in Russellville, but still doesn't look like we're talking about anything that is warned. So certainly some good news there, but it's still something we're going to continue to monitor over the next several minutes. So if you're just joining us this afternoon, we did have a tornado warning that was in effect earlier for different portions of northwest Alabama. We currently do not have any tornado warnings or even any severe thunderstorm warnings in effect for any portion of northwest Alabama or any of the Tennessee Valley for that matter. But this is something that we're going to continue to watch over the next several minutes and kind of see what happens with these storms. Again, there is a lot of thunder, some lightning, a fair amount of lightning, as a matter of fact. So that's something we're going to pay attention to as these storms continue to move into. Did we just get a new tornado warning, Emily? I know neither of us.
Our National Weather Service chat isn't working.
I know we don't have access, but I thought I saw a new red box. Maybe I didn't see a new red box. But I thought I saw a new red box, which would indicate a new tornado warning. But again, Emily and I have both lost our contact with the National Weather Service, so it's not necessarily good news. But we are continuing to watch an area of particular interest, some storms as they do move in to northwest Alabama, some decent thunderstorms as they move into northwest Alabama. It's going to be something that we continue to watch. As these storms that are currently moving through Colbert and Franklin counties continue to move into an area that is a little more favorable for the development of severe weather. If you're in the shoals, you're talking about a fair amount of heavy rain. If you're in Florence, you're talking about a fair amount of heavy rain. You're also talking about some frequent lightning. And then again, as you can see there on the banner, it is worth noting that the entire Tennessee Valley, and especially northwest Alabama, is sitting under a tornado watch. That tornado watch is going to run, until 8 o'clock this evening. So again, we have nothing warned for the time being in northwest Alabama, but it's something we're going to continue to watch as we go through the next several minutes. Storms are going to continue to fire up as they move into northwest Alabama, where it does have the opportunity to go through some rapid intensification. Still trying to get our contact back with the National Weather Service here in Huntsville. It would appear that both Emily and I, and apparently our entire news department, has lost contact, and that is not the greatest of news. So it's something that we're just going to have to be mindful of and something that we're going to have to work through. Like I said, it doesn't look like we have anything warned right now, but it's going to be something that we continue to watch in the next few minutes. Again, it doesn't look like we have any sort of severe thunderstorm warning. It doesn't look like we have any sort of tornado warning, but we are going to continue watching some storms as they continue to move through the Tennessee Valley. So I kind of want to zoom out real quick, Emily, if you don't mind. Let's look at the Tennessee Valley as a whole.
While I'm zooming out, it does look like they did cancel that tornado warning, so nothing carried over into Alabama.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't look like I see the flashing red box in northeast Alabama. So they have allowed the tornado warning to cancel or expire in northeast Alabama. I want to flip this back over to the Huntsville radar so we can talk about a lot of the very widespread rain that we're still seeing across northeast Alabama. Now, there is the potential that this widespread rain could cut down on our abilities to destabilize over the next several minutes or even over the next couple of hours, because the more rain we see, the smaller our likelihood would be that we're able to destabilize. So that's going to be something that we watch as we go through not just the next several minutes, but over the next couple of hours as well. So again, we don't have anything currently warned across the Tennessee Valley. We don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings. We don't have any tornado warnings. But nonetheless, we do have some stronger thunderstorms that we're going to continue to watch as they move through the Tennessee Valley. I want to switch back over here. I kind of want to go up into my show. I kind of want to give you a look at Moulton, if we can do that. I kind of want to go through a couple of things for you.
While you're getting that together, I was able to log into the anonymous IEM bot, which is kind of what we use in a backup, but it does look like they did allow that warning to expire. And we also are getting some reports in Jackson County of a flash flood. County Road 105 has about 6 inches of water over the road between the two streams that run under the roadway. And we're also getting reports of up to 1 inch hail during the severe warned storm that we saw previously in DeKalb County. But from the tornado warning that we experienced earlier, we don't have any reports of anything from that whatsoever yet. So that is definitely some good news. But like Jordan said, we could start to see more storms as we get into the later portion of the afternoon possibly. So this is something that you're just going to have to stay on your toes for the rest of the afternoon and into the evening.
And we do hope this is something that you're going to continue to be very mindful of as we progress through the rest of the afternoon, and especially as we get into the evening. Our atmosphere is still going to have the ability to destabilize as we go through the next few hours. So this is something that we want to pay very close attention to as we go through the next few hours. Some of us are going to have better abilities to destabilize than others. So here's a live look over Moulton as it stands right now. Maybe they're actually beginning to see a little bit of sunshine. That actually looks like a little bit of blue sky. What if I move and go to the other side? Kind of looks like that's a little bit of blue sky over in Moulton, and that would imply that they're able to destabilize a little more if they're talking about a little bit of sunshine. It looks like a couple of raindrops there on the camera, but I don't necessarily see anything that would imply that it's raining. I really don't see anything falling from the sky, and again, it does look like there is a little bit of blue sky there in Moulton. It also looks like the rain has backed off quite a bit over in Decatur, but look at our temperature. Currently sitting at 67 right now over in Decatur. Look at our dew point. We're also talking about we got a new tornado warning. Let's go back over to our radar. Emily, we have a new tornado warning. It looks like this tornado warning is going to be, did my chat quit again? That would not be cool. But I got the text, a new tornado warning for Marshall and Coleman counties. So Coleman and Marshall counties, it looks like we have a new tornado warning. This time I think we should probably stick with the Huntsville radar.
Let me swap that over.
I want to check, I want to try and give you a little bit of real-time information on this tornado warning. So I'm going to hope it pulls up on my phone here. Tornado warning. Well, that's not the right tornado warning. Excuse me, while we try and see, I got the alert, but I don't see the tornado warning, which is very interesting. I'm wondering if the polygon may have leaked a little bit from the National Weather Service down into from the National Weather Service in Birmingham. I'm kind of wondering if maybe it leaked a little bit down into Coleman County, because I'm honestly not seeing anything right now that would indicate a tornado warning in effect for any portion of Coleman and Marshall County. So I don't want to make any moves on this just yet. I want to continue to watch it over the next few minutes because I'm not 100% sure
Yeah, it just looks like it's on the border of Coleman and Blount County. So Blount County is under a tornado warning right now, and it looks like the rotation is just south of the Hayden area. So I'm not seeing anything on Coleman and Marshall yet.
No, but it looks like if this storm were to hold itself together, it looks like it's just to the southeast. And I'll go down back into the warning. It looks like if it were to hold itself together right now, it looks like it's across the I-65 corridor just to the north of Warrior down into Hayden. Looks like this storm is going to track up into, eventually up into Aniana. Now, if this storm holds itself together, then we'd be talking about this storm moving into Marshall County. So we don't have a tornado warning that is in effect for our viewing area just to the south of Coleman County. We're actually watching an impressive area of rotation. This is directly to the south of Coleman County. Emily, if you don't mind zooming in on that area directly to the south. A lot of lightning. This actually looks like a really decent storm. Again, this is directly to the south of Coleman County. This does not include Coleman County, but we are talking about a tornado warning just to the south. This would mainly be for Blount County. Now, Blount County obviously borders Coleman County. So if this storm holds itself together, it has the potential to move up into Marshall County. Emily's put a track on this storm for you. We can go ahead and kind of read off some of these cities. Hayden by 352, Locust Fork by 402, Nectar by 403, Cleveland by 409, Allgood by 410, getting into Rosa by 413. If this storm holds together, we'd be talking about Aniana by 414. So this is something that we're also going to continue to watch closely. It doesn't look like it's going to impact Coleman County. Instead, what it looks like it's going to do is if it were to continue on this northeast journey, it would end up in Marshall County. Now, I think there's still a couple of questions as to whether Marshall County actually has a fair amount of instability or not, as to whether it can support this storm. But it does look like if the storm were to hold itself together, that it would end up in Marshall County. So I think we'll continue to stick with you for at least a little bit, kind of to see what this storm does as we go through the next several minutes, as this storm kind of moves to the northeast, and see what happens with it. Again, it doesn't look like this storm is impacting.
We don't have any debris signature on this just yet, so that is definitely some good news. I know Blount County is not in our DMA, right? Is not in our DMA, but I do know that some folks that do live in Blount County can pick up our channel on their antenna. I'm actually from Blount County, so this hits a little closer to home here for me. So Blount County under a tornado warning until 4:45, but for the rest of us in the Tennessee Valley, we're clear as of right now. But if this tornado warning were to continue, it would head towards the Marshall County area, would eventually make its way into the Sneed Crossing in the junction of 75 and 278. But as of right now, this thing is just on, it looks like the Jefferson County, Blount County line, and it looks like it's to the south of Hayden, just over the I-65 corridor. We'll be heading close to Mount Olive here within the next few minutes or so. Now, I do want to reiterate that although not all of these towns in the polygon could see this threat, but just know that if you are in this polygon, you do need to be in your safe place just as a precautionary measure. Make sure you have your helmets on. You have, don't forget your pets. Make sure you take your pets with you to your safe place. But as of right now, there are no current tornado warnings for the Tennessee Valley. We're just seeing this one in Blount County right now, but we just wanted to go ahead and give you guys a heads up for this one, because if they do decide to carry this over, it would go into Marshall County. We are picking up on some rotation just to the south and a little west of the Hayden community, right around the Bent Tree area. This would be I think this is actually, yeah, State Route 160 is where this thing is currently over. It's just to the west of Nyota. We'll be heading toward Wallstown pretty soon. Sugar Creek, Locust Fork, Nectar, Easley, Aniana, go ahead and take your safe places. I know Blount County is not our DMA, but like I've been saying to the Marshall County residents, just want to give you guys a heads up that this could very well potentially make its way into Marshall County, and if that is the case, it will head towards the Douglas area. It will continue to travel up 75 into Douglas and Albertville, so just be mindful of that. But right now this rotation looks to be exactly to the south of Hayden. I'll just go ahead and circle this for you right here. And it looks like it's going to travel, I think, along a northeastern path. So let me go ahead and put another track on this. It looked to be moving about 35 to 40 mile per hour. So if that is the case, it will be Locust Fork by 402, Nectar by 403, Cleveland by 409. And if you're unfamiliar, 160 runs all the way from Hayden to Cleveland. So if you know anybody traveling along that roadway, Nectar as well, make sure you go ahead and call them and let them know. All Good by 411. All Good runs through 75. 75 runs all the way through Aniana. Notice Aniana is the county seat of Blount County. So we definitely have a heavy population in Aniana. But Locust Fork, like I said, 402. Nectar, 403. Cleveland, 409. All Good by 411. Jordan, how long was this warning running until?
I want to say that this warning was supposed to go until 4:45, so we have a little less than an hour left on it. But at this point, it almost has to move through the entirety of Blount County, and the rotation is still holding itself together somewhat nicely.
Yeah, and we're also picking up on a good indication. Let me actually throw on our lightning and notice how we're picking up some energy on our lightning. So that is some indication that this storm does have a lot of energy left. But like Jordan said, this storm would pretty much have to travel the entire length of Blount County before it got to Marshall County. Just for reference, Aniana to about Douglas is about 30 minutes time-wise. So that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. But I'm going to go ahead and zoom back into this rotation. And I'm actually going to just go ahead and turn our lightning counter off because we are seeing such a big uptick in lightning that it is actually covering our area of rotation.
Emily, if you don't mind switching that over to our shear rate, I kind of want to get a look at what we're talking about. And again, this is in Blount County, so this is just to the south of Coleman County. It doesn't necessarily, doesn't at all, as a matter of fact, include Coleman County. But this is going to be something that we're going to continue to watch. Again, like Emily said, if you know anybody in Blount County, it doesn't hurt to give them a call. If you're in the Hayden community, or if you know anybody in the Hayden community, you really need to be in your tornado safe place. Like, you need to be there right now. If you're in Locust Fork and you're not in your tornado safe place, you need to be getting there within the next couple of minutes. Same goes if you're up into Nectar, or if you know anybody, I should say, in Nectar, you really need to be calling them, telling them to get into their tornado safe place. And like Emily said, Aniana is probably going to be the most populous place in Blount County. So if you know anybody in Aniana, might I suggest giving them a call as well and suggesting that they get into their tornado safe place. This is a radar indicated tornado warning. Doesn't look like we have anything confirmed on the ground just yet. Now, I also want to check the rest of the Tennessee Valley. So let's zoom out and kind of look at the rest of the Tennessee Valley as a whole. We can kind of see what we're talking about. We're still talking about some decent thunderstorms, as a matter of fact. As long as we're going to talk about northwest Alabama, we can kind of transition over just a little bit. We're still talking about some decent thunderstorms back across northwest Alabama, especially up into Lauderdale, down into portions of Colbert County. We can kind of zoom in on this area. Killen, you're talking about some very, very heavy rain right now. This would include Highway 43. Highway 43 is running north to south down into Big Oak, Aqua Vista. You're talking about some very heavy rain. Alexander Heights, you are also talking about some very heavy rain, not to the extent that they're talking about very heavy rain in Killen down into Florence, also talking about some moderate, maybe some heavier rainfall. Cypress Heights also would be talking about some moderate, maybe some heavier rainfall. Cloverdale Heights, again, same case goes. You're talking about some moderate or some heavy rainfall. The good news is it doesn't appear that these storms are rotating at all, and it also doesn't look like they have any sort of shear associated with them. What we do have, though, is that these storms do seem to have a history of producing a little bit of hail. This activity is confined to different portions of northwest Alabama, but storms have also had a history of producing a little bit of hail as they get into Limestone County. So that's also something that we want to continue to watch as well. So as far as what we've got going on right now across the Tennessee Valley, we don't have any severe thunderstorm warnings and we don't have any tornado warnings, but we do have some stronger thunderstorms across the Tennessee Valley. Now, these thunderstorms do pack a punch. They've got some heavy rain, they've got some louder thunder, and they've also got a little bit of lightning, especially this storm up into northwest Alabama. It looks like it's got a fair amount of lightning associated with it. Now, what we do have as far as a tornado warning is concerned is we do have a tornado warning that is currently in effect for Blount County. Down into Blount County, we do have a tornado warning that is in effect until 4:45. So we're going to go down, and I kind of want to zoom in on that area down around Blount County, and we can show you that. I'm going to take this off.
While you're doing that, Jordan, I just want to let people know that we did receive notification from the National Weather Service. One of us was able to get in, and they are saying that if this particular cell that we've been talking about in Blount County maintains its track and its speed, it would enter far southern Marshall County by 4:30, so around the Albertville community. So just heads up, even if this thing doesn't continue its tornado warning into Marshall County, this storm does look like it is packing quite a punch, so it could get very loud there within the next 30 minutes or so.
Certainly some good advice if you are in Marshall Counties. Prepare yourselves for what could be, at the very least, a very loud thunderstorm packing some gusty winds. Maybe a little bit of hail. I've gone ahead and circled our area of interest as far as velocity is concerned. Again, this is down into Blount County, over near the Locust Fork area, getting ready to get up into Cleveland. Again, if this storm holds itself together, and it still has quite a ways to go. It has to go all the way through Blount County yet, but if it holds itself together at its current speed and we kind of maintain this rotation, we would then be talking about a tornado warning that could eventually bleed into southern portions of Marshall County. So this is something that we're going to want to continue to keep our eyes on as we go throughout the next several minutes. It's 3:59 right now. Like Emily told you, this storm has the potential to be up into Marshall County right around 4:25, 4:30. So we're going to stick with you at least until then. I want to continue to watch this storm as it continues to move through Blount County. I also want to take it home. I want to go back to our radar, and I didn't want to draw anything.
Hey, while you're doing this, Jordan, can we actually, since we don't have any warnings right now in the Tennessee Valley, could we actually take it a little further south towards the Tuscaloosa area? Because it does look like south of Tuscaloosa, around the Union area, there's 2 tornado warnings down that way. It looks actually like it's in Greene County as well as Sumter County. But the reason I wanted to do this was because these things are literally crossing the state line and forming into tornado warnings. So that's how fast these things are starting to pop off today.
And that's certainly worth mention. Like Emily said, these things are moving across the state line, and then they're strengthening very quickly. And that's what we could continue to see the opportunity for across northwest Alabama and across a good chunk of the Tennessee Valley as we get into the later part of the afternoon, early into the evening, as our environment continues to destabilize just a little bit. So Emily kind of wanted to call your attention to the fact that, you know, we see these tornado warnings or these storms move from central Mississippi into central Alabama, and they intensify. They intensify very, very quickly. That's why it's going to be so important as we go through the remainder of the afternoon and through the remainder of the evening that you have your plan ready to put in place at a moment's notice because we are going to continue to talk about that opportunity for some supercells. And look what we're beginning to see even back across the I-65 corridor, getting into the Huntsville metro area. Look how much we're beginning to quiet down. As a matter of fact, in the Huntsville metro area, maybe at this point we're talking about a couple of sprinkles. We're dry back across Decatur, down into Hartselle at this point. We're dry across a good chunk of the I-65 corridor. Up into Ardmore, it does look like we're dry. It looks like maybe a couple of sprinkles. Meridianville up into Hazel Green along 231. It does look like maybe a couple of sprinkles, but for the most part, we are dry. And then with the exception of this one storm back across northwest Alabama, it does look like chunks of northwest Alabama are dry. A good majority of Colbert County is dry. Almost the entirety of Franklin County is dry at this point. We can kind of switch radars and give you a better idea of that. And yeah, it still kind of confirms the fact that a good chunk of Colbert County and all of Franklin County is dry. We're just talking about this one stronger storm across Lauderdale County that is eventually going to move into Limestone County. And this is kind of riding right along the Alabama-Tennessee border. And these storms have been moving to the northeast. So it kind of looks like this storm would move up into Giles and Lincoln counties as it continues to go about its lifespan. Emily, if you don't mind, I kind of want to switch back over to our temperatures and our dew points. I kind of want to check on those and see what we're talking about. Really beginning to, wait, go back to that for a second.
All right.
I kind of want to call your attention to something. Look how much we're beginning to clear out over in Decatur, really beginning to notice some impressive breaks in the cloud cover. Yeah, you see some darker clouds here as I'm kind of trying to indicate above the tree line, but look what we've got over the Tennessee River. Look how much we're beginning to clear out, some sunshine beginning to poke through, really beginning to quiet down over in Decatur. Do we have the Moulton camera available by chance? I think I put that in my show. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, there's the Moulton camera. Look what we're talking about in Moulton. We're talking about all of this blue sky. And this is going to be really important because as we get this blue sky, despite the fact that we're talking about the activity that is sitting to our south, Emily had us focus on those tornado warnings south of Tuscaloosa. Despite the fact that we're talking about those tornado warnings that are sitting to our south, I think at the same time, we're talking about this blue sky in Moulton. That's going to allow us to destabilize, and that's going to allow us to be sitting under an environment that is a little more conducive for the development of severe weather as we, go through the later part of the afternoon and then into the evening, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. I think maybe we'd be talking about a greater potential for severe weather across the Tennessee Valley because, again, we're looking at a lot of that blue sky. Play this graphic through so we can see the temperature and the dew point there. Over in Moulton. So they've got a temperature right now of 68 degrees and a dew point of 67. Now, a dew point of 67, that's impressive. A dew point of 67 would put us in an environment that is incredibly conducive for further development of severe weather. We can go over to our main temperatures and our main dew points. I kind of want to look at those across the Tennessee Valley as a whole. So temperatures across the entire Tennessee Valley, and we're going to look at all of North Alabama, southern Middle Tennessee. First, Northeast Alabama. Scottsboro sitting at 66 degrees, Fort Payne sitting at 64, Arab and Albertville also sitting at 64 degrees. But look what happens by the time we get to the other side of I-65. Florence is sitting at 70 degrees. Russellville and Moulton are both sitting at 68 degrees. Athens and Decatur sitting at 68 degrees. The Huntsville International Airport is sitting at 67 degrees. Now, as far as an environment that would be supportive of severe weather, these are very warm temperatures. Now, if you don't mind flipping it over to our dew points, I kind of want to compare what we're talking about. Now, says the dew point in Florence has actually dropped a little bit. It says it's down to 62. Russellville has a dew point of 67. Athens and Decatur both have dew points of 64. Huntsville International's got a dew point of 66, and so does Scottsboro. Arab and Albertville. It does look like the dew point is a little bit lower in Arab and Albertville, which would certainly be some good news as that tornado-warned storm continues to move up into Marshall County. That maybe in Marshall County, they wouldn't necessarily have the environment that is conducive for the development of severe weather. So that's something we're going to continue to watch. Blount County is very large, and that entire storm has to move through Blount County before it gets up into Marshall County. So that's something we're going to pay attention to. We can go ahead and go back over to our radar if you don't mind. That's something we're going to continue to pay attention to as we go through the next several minutes. Emily, if you don't mind, we can go back down to that Blount County storm. I know you're trying to get into the NWS chat. Flip it over to our velocity, and it'd probably be a good idea if we picked the Birmingham radar. Still noticing a decent amount of rotation there. It looks like that rotation at this point is just to the west of Sneed. Kind of looks like that's holding itself together quite nicely.
There's actually two that I just noticed. This one off to the south and
oh, you're right. Right around the Cleveland area, it does look like there is an additional area of rotation. If we put on our shear rate, you notice a little bit of elevated shear. Now, this shear is not terribly impressive, but nonetheless, we are actually talking about two different areas of some increased interest there in Blount County. And again, this is in Blount County. This isn't necessarily our viewing area, but like Emily mentioned earlier, if you have an antenna, some folks down in Blount County can actually see our signal. And this storm does have the potential to move up into Marshall County. So at this point, just like the storms we had in northeast Mississippi, it's going to be a matter of whether this storm actually manages to hold itself together. But still, it does look like we are maybe talking about two different areas of increased activity. I want to see what this is. I did not talk to my Siri. So we're going to continue to watch this area of interest as this storm continues to move to the northeast into Blount County. Right now, this is just a radar indicated storm. It has some rotation associated with it, and like Emily was kind of acknowledging, it has two different areas of rotation. One of them is a little more broad than the other. I zoomed that out too far. So again, our main focus is going to be Blount County at this time. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make this look a little more interesting at least. Excuse me. Here's what I've got for you. We can step aside from that Blount County storm for just a moment. We're continuing to talk about the activity that we also have back off into northwest Alabama. At this point, this storm is beginning to move up into southern middle Tennessee. But I kind of want to show you, now it looks like there's not a lot of activity back across northeast Mississippi, but there is still some activity nonetheless. And all of this is going to gradually move to the northeast. And what I think could happen is that as these storms move to the northeast, I think that they could fire up a little quicker as they move into northwest Alabama because, like we were just discussing a few moments ago, northwest Alabama is sitting under a particularly interesting environment where they would be a little more supportive for the development of severe weather. So I think that's something we want to pay attention to. I know some folks are saying, well, what about the rain that fell this morning? It didn't necessarily come to a stop. Well, it did come to a stop across northwest Alabama. So this is something that we want to continue to pay attention to, especially with any storm development that is occurring back across northeast Mississippi. But for the time being, we are beginning to quiet down a little bit across the Tennessee Valley. I can take you back home. I can switch over to our Huntsville radar. And I can kind of show you, we're still talking about some widespread rain across northeast Alabama, but many of us, like I said, are beginning to quiet down. Maybe a couple of sprinkles at this point, if that. across the Huntsville metro area. Maybe a little bit of rain still falling across Ardmore, down in Decatur, down into Hartselle. Across the I-65 corridor, a couple of sprinkles, but for the most part, we are dry. Now, maybe you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, did this drying come too little too late? No, remember, our sunset is not until 7 o'clock. So we still have, it's 4:11. We still have 3 hours
Hey, Jordan.
for us to, yes.
I just want to say that the Blount County storm was allowed to expire the tornado warning, and they went ahead and went with a significant weather advisory for southeastern Marshall and southwestern DeKalb counties until about 4:45. So like I mentioned earlier, although this tornado warning was not bled into Marshall County, things probably are going to be really loud here in a few minutes, and we are picking up on lots of lightning with these storms as well today, so just be mindful of that.
So like Emily just finished saying, they did allow the tornado warning in Blount County to expire. Certainly some good news there. It's just going to be a really loud thunderstorm. This is a live view over in Athens. Doesn't really look like a whole lot's going on, but if you pay attention to the fact that there is a little bit of clearing hanging out in Athens. And like I was getting ready to say, if you don't mind, production, thank you so much. Like I was getting ready to say, sunset is not until 7 o'clock, which means we still have plenty of time to destabilize. Now, we do have a few factors to consider. We can consider the fact that the action across central Alabama has been a little greater this afternoon. That has the potential to snuff some of our abilities. But at the same time, we're not necessarily talking about a long linear line. We're talking about discrete supercells. So we don't need to be letting our guard down through the remainder of the afternoon, and then as we head into the evening, because there is still plenty of opportunity. But given the fact that we are a little quieter across the Tennessee Valley and we don't actually have any warnings, I think for the time being, I am going to go ahead and we'll send you back to programming, but you should stick with us. We do have a special edition of WZDX News coming up tonight at 5 o'clock, a full hour of news from 5 to 6. But until then, I'll send y'all back to regular programming.